Hello all and welcome to the Fantasy and Sci-Fi Fanatics podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Coolbaugh. Today I have with me, for the second time, a very special guest, Jay Swift. Jen, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm really good. I'm excited.
Yeah, I was really excited that we could actually get you on for February, she wrote. Well, my wife's like, you got to go because you didn't get to get her last time. She's like, she was like, yeah, there's been a lot of people, like the weather, and us is affected. So she's like, we're gonna get this in today. I'm like, yeah, all right. So she's getting her nails done while we're doing this. So I was like, thank you. She knows
You're gonna make it happen.
Yeah, well, if I have to reschedule, I don't get somebody. I'm like, I just feel like, that would have been I think of like our first one, like there was a lot of really good stuff in there. So, and then I had a couple the last couple of weeks I rescheduled, and it just so happens the ones that always, end up rescheduling recording, something always really good, at least for me, really comes out. So I'm expecting that as well today. Already our conversation before we started recording.
Hey, no pressure.
Well, we could always talk about the TikTok stuff we were talking about. So that was already really helpful for me. So we'll start with that first one. Obviously, I'm really excited because we saw you in the fall, pretty much like the third week in October. So what is new in your writing world since the fall and the first episode that we had together?
So I think at that point, I was leaving, or I'd left recently my publisher, my indie pub 2 on the go on Amazon. Finally managed to get the third finished of my trilogy. We've trilled it up. And now they're all available on Amazon. So I managed to format an entire book, get it edited, do the cover art, and start working on the audiobook.
So what you're saying is, as you say, what you're saying is you weren't doing enough, right? Before.
I wasn't doing enough. In between all of that, I started a new series as well, somehow.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, don't know where the time comes from, but there we are.
Yeah. That's awesome. If you're watching on YouTube, guys, I'm just kidding. That's okay.
We're good. We're fine. We're back.
But you're saying you have your new series, so that's really exciting. So is that so what is that new series going to be? Is that going to be sci-fi, fantasy? Is that going to be a mix? Going to be something new?
It's very sci-fi.
I like that
but
answer.
At the same time, it's kind of based on tabletop role-playing games. So it's the same element as Dungeons and Dragons. So you've got a party of a cast. And there's the barbarian, there's the healer, there's the rogue, there's the tank, and so they've just been transformed from the medieval stereotype into a very science fiction world. They have their own ship that they stole.
That's cool.
They don't know each other. They end up going on adventures together, earning coin from jobs, well, credits from jobs. At the moment, I think we're 9 chapters in, and my main character has already had her arm removed and replaced with a cybernetic enhancement.
Oh, that's cool.
Because it was part of the game that we played, and I played this character, and I got bored. And so while 2 of the characters went off to do a transport job, I decided to go to the medical center for some cybernetic enhancements. So my character had her arm removed, replaced with a big robot arm that has these vibro blades, very Wolverine style vibro blades put in there.
That's cool.
I can't remember how I got the credits to do it, but when it came to writing it in the book, certainly we didn't have any credits. That was the premise of them having to be together. I had to come up with a new way for her to end up with this arm, which is both comical and quite sad. Which is a really good description of the book.
Oh, that's awesome.
Comical, but quite sad.
Yeah. That sounds really cool. Well, I'm anxious for that.
It's a lot of fun to write.
Yeah,
you'll enjoy it. I think you'll like it. I mean, I can send you them first few chapters if you want to do me a little proofread.
Yeah, that'd be terrific.
Tell me how they're coming along.
That'd be terrific, because I was
we'll sort that out after. We'll do that after.
Yeah. Well, it's just funny that you say that, because like I was just talking to a friend of mine the other day about that, about like we were talking about fantasy and sci-fi, where he was reading something and I was reading something, and we just were laughing so hard, in our respective stories. And he's like, so why is yours so funny? And I'm like, well, it's this thing that's going on in this book with this fantasy character and the crew, and it's just like typical stupid friend stuff, but I felt like the author captured it really well. And we were just talking about comedy in fantasy and sci-fi, where they're like, we feel like there's not enough of it nowadays. It's all you know, DC
Very
dark.
serious.
Yeah, very serious. And it's like we just want some stories where it's just like some people hanging out and, you know, with their friends and you know, living their lives,
think
so to speak.
what I'm enjoying the most is that I've given the main character quite the internal monologue. And there's moments where something's happening and she's going, like, she just accidentally nearly killed a bunch of people. Don't ask. But she leaves this place. She gets taken from this place by her friends. And in her head, she's like, oh, I should really apologize for this. This is a terrible thing that I've just done. I really need to apologize to these people that I barely know. But the words that come out of her mouth are something along the lines of like, oh, they fucking deserved it, though, the bastards. I'm going, I really enjoy it because that's what was going through my head when I played. I was like, I should definitely not have done that.
Yeah.
And then they'd be looking at me and I'd be like, hey, you're that bastards.
That's awesome.
Terrible Scottish. I'm so sorry to anybody who watches this who is Scottish. It's a terrible Scottish accent.
That's all right. I'm only like 35%, so we're okay. No Scots were harmed in the making of this podcast. So
none whatsoever.
I just think it's funny because you said that, you know, like you were playing the game and that's how your character felt during that time. So I do think, again, it really, you know, like it is fun, you know, like I've been running a game in my own fantasy world through 5e with D&D, and it's been a lot of fun. Like it has helped me write a lot. And even like during, like I'll have everything planned out and I'm about to do that again tomorrow for our next game, but it's like I'll be in the moment, I'm like, no, that's way cooler. So I do that. And then I've been taking notes, but like it's helped the writing process. So I've always tell people, like, you should definitely try yeah, from any perspective, really.
I find that
or DM, I should say.
We use you get like really sort of fleshed out characters for a book like this story. I always worried that like my main character's great, but then all the other characters are just like flat. But I think writing from this perspective of having people who've created their own character with their own backstories and their own motivations, I didn't know what those motivations were. I mean, my friends will text me to tell me, like, this is what my character was doing at the time. You have to make sure you get this. I'm like, yeah, sure. But I feel like it just makes for really well-rounded characters across the board. Which I don't think you get often enough in big ensemble books with many, many characters. It's very difficult to flesh them out so much. And so I love the inspiration that comes from having those pre-made people ready to just be dropped into an adventure. I've been sending it to the crew of the Providence, my friends, and I'm going, okay, I'm just going to send you this, and because I didn't tell any of them I was doing this.
Oh, that's really cool.
So I got like I got like 20 pages in. I'm like, guys, I'm going to send you something. You need to read it. And they did, awesome. And they're all very much on board with it. It just means that I get an email at least once a day off one of them going, I'm going to need you to send me some more. You're going to have to do some writing. Okay. It's keeping me on track, awesome. So it's making me write more.
But I think it's awesome.
It's been so much fun writing it.
Now I'm really jealous because I've been wanting to do that for a while. Like my buddy and I, like the three of us we're in this D&D group like before the pandemic, right? And this like fell apart before the pandemic, but like we it was almost like a grimdark campaign, and then one of our people we were playing with, she was like 16. She's like, well, I want a DM. So we're like, sure, why not? Thinking whatever, you know, like we didn't want to, we just wanted to play. Oh my gosh, like she came up with the greatest like ideas, and I've been trying to contact her because I want to be like, hey, do you think like you and I could look back over your notes and what we did? And I'm like, I really want to write a story about it because everything we were doing, I was like, this is so freaking cool. And I had like this skull that was like so interesting, and my friend had this thief that was really cool. I think it was like a thief / ranger, whatever that class was, but it was cool because like we had like a really good relationship, and like we were just like stealing money from everybody. Like I would use my charm and then he would steal, so we were like just collecting gold, and you know, just like it was fun, stupid stuff, you know. But we felt like a lot of people could really, you know, like could get into it, but I didn't want to just like start writing her ideas down, you know. So I was like, well, it's a lot more cooler with the campaign that we're in. But I've been trying to contact her because I'm like, I really want to write a story about it because she gave us some great ideas. We met this god and goddess, and I PO'd both of them, and you know, it's like there was really good story material, you know. Like I'm like, I want to find out what happens. I honestly think that
I'd like the world of Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop games in general is such an amazing place to find stories, because not just one person's brain making this story. It is such a collaborative effort. Like our DM gives us a world and we just find our own unique way to fuck it up, basically. I don't know if I can swear. Can I swear?
Oh, no, you're fine. Yeah, you're fine.
We're in a campaign at the minute, and we're all playing these random characters, and he likes to beg and borrow from things to make a really cool world for us to play in, and we're all sci-fi nerds anyway. So he's taken Moira from Farscape, the ship.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
The Leviathan ship.
Oh man.
And he's given us one of those. So now we live on a Leviathan. We've called her Rose, and my character is her pilot.
Cool.
And we have like this 12-foot rhino looking guy, and we've got a couple of elves, but I play an Eldar from Warhammer in this world.
That's awesome.
One of my other friends is a human from the Imperium of Man, and
cool.
It's just this. I mean, we ended up accidentally 2,000 years in the future, and it's a future that is now ruled by the Imperium of Man, and I'm an Eldar going, oh no, this is not good for me. This is not gonna, we have to leave now. But yeah, it's just the way that he crafts these things. I mean, I'd love to write a story about the world that we're in now, but there's too much borrowed. There's no way I could change it enough.
No, totally.
Something unique. The first campaign we played was all his brain. With this one's a bit of everything, because he knows that's what we like. So he pulls things that we can recognize from worlds that we recognize and stories that we get. We had an android called Noonien Sung, which I thought was quite nice.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because a little tricky. He gave us one, and I don't think anybody quite realized, but he 3D prints a lot of the stuff that we play with.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
Our figurines are like this big, and he 3D printed a land shark that was like this big. And we're all laid out on the table, like sat on the table, and he puts this giant thing in the middle of the thing, and he's like, this is what you can see. We were like, oh, he's like, yeah, they call it the Kobayashi. And I was like, oh, so we go. I'm just going to start running. I'm not staying for this.
That's awesome.
I see what you did there, and I don't like it. But yeah, no, it's I could talk about tabletop gaming all day. It's really bad.
No. But like I always say, you know, if that's the thing, then that's the thing we talk about. But I do think it's interesting that both. So anybody that's keeping track, that's twice that Jen's mentioned the Kobayashi Maru back-to-back podcast. So that's awesome. Hopefully we can get 3 in a row.
Oh my God. I am so obsessed with Star Trek. It's not even funny. It's not even funny.
I was just thinking the other day though, like, you know, I was like, oh, I really want, you know, I was thinking of this sci-fi idea, and I was like, oh, that'd be really cool. And then I was like, oh no, it's basically just Star Trek, you know, and like just with different characters. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And, you know, it's like we talked last time though, you know, about, you know, things that inspire you, and, you know, Star Trek. I was just thinking about it the other day, you know, like I grew up on Walker, Texas Ranger, MacGyver, you know, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Angel, you know, Star Trek, Star Wars, you know, and as I started to make a map of things, I was like, oh, this actually makes a lot of sense for the person that I am today, like both in writing and outside of writing. And, you know, I do think I watched a lot of Star Trek, you know, it was really good.
Yeah, I love Star Trek. See, I love Buffy more than any, like Buffy is one of my favorites, but Angel I never watched ever until about 4 days ago. And I started watching Angel for the first time.
Oh, that's funny, because I mentioned that in October, and you said you were going to watch it.
12 episodes in at the minute. Yeah, well, I did.
That's funny.
I did watch it. I think we've just got, I mean, I am currently. Wesley Wyndham-Pryce has just turned up. Doyle, what happened there?
Yep.
I was not prepared. We're like 9 episodes into a series. I'm not prepared for this.
Yeah.
The whole thing with Buffy coming back, I'm watching it going, I didn't know any of this went on. Okay. But yeah, I watched one just before I came up here, the one that had Jeremy Renner in it.
Oh,
and I'm watching it going, that's Jeremy Renner?
Yeah. I totally forgot about it.
Of course, I took a picture and sent it to my Marvel group chat, and I'm like, guys, this is Jeremy Renner.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool.
Angel is, I'm enjoying it a lot, like immensely. I really am loving it. After this, I'm going to go and watch some more.
Oh yeah, well, like I tried to explain.
Thanks for the recommendation on that. It's really good.
Yeah. Well, like I tried to explain to a couple people the other day, you know, like where I'm like, you know, you have Buffy, you have Angel, and I was trying to explain, you know, like even some of the newer urban fantasy type shows, you know, like Sci-Fi had a lot of great ones, you know, And now I just feel like there's not as much now, and my friend like mentioned a couple. I'm like, yeah, but I'm like, I think it's really time for, like real urban fantasy to take the screen at Netflix, or Showtime or HBO or whatever. Because what happened to True Blood? Like True Blood was there, but now it's like what is there really? It's like we had a lot of great stuff, but now I feel like there's a huge gap. But
yeah,
at least on on the big screen, I guess. And
there's room for some really cool shows to come out.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people have done a lot of, I'm hoping. That's what my friend, he's like, oh, well, Wheel of Time in this. I said, here's the thing though, I said about these. I said, people eat up the books because of the shows. I said, whether or not you like the show because you read the books, I said, it doesn't matter. I said, what we ultimately get out of it is that we'll get more shows that are from fantasy and sci-fi books. And I'm hoping urban fantasy, and I'm like, we're going to get something good out of it, whether it's Wheel of Time, if you didn't like it or did. I'm like, I personally thought they did some things well, not so well, whatever. But I'm like, I just think that, like it opens the door up for more people. And I've known quite a few people on Twitter, from the communities, from all three communities that, are, in deals and stuff like that. I just see more and more, books are becoming TV series, which I think is what Hollywood and those people should do. You shouldn't put a 12 book series into a 2-hour movie that's going to be horrible. So
no, let's give it a full TV show.
Yeah, let's
give it what it deserves.
Yeah, like Angel or Buffy. I mean, I just think you make a really good point there. That's like, I still will go back. I'm actually about to go back through and watch Angel again. A friend asked to do like a watch party sort of thing, and I was like, oh, that sounds fun. So I think we're gonna wait to do that to the summertime.
So
yeah.
Anytime something traumatic happens in Angel now, I can send you a message and be like, you didn't warn me about this.
Yep. And
this is your fault.
I honestly think
I think
I don't want to ruin anything. For you, the audience, I'm just gonna say with the ending.
I mean, it's been like 20 years.
We can't call spoiler well, somebody called me out the other day. They were like, "Hey, you shouldn't have blah blah blah." I'm like, "Yeah, it's been 20 years." But I do. So I'm gonna say that the ending for Angel, whether or not you're a fan who loves it or hates it, it made me want to write, and it still does. And it has to have been one of the top 3 reasons that I wanted to start writing books myself. So I'm just going to leave you with that. Yeah, I'm just going to leave you with that.
Oh, so. How many seasons are there? How long is it going to take me to get there?
Oh my gosh.
Is it like 5?
I thought there were 7, but
I don't think.
Maybe it was 6. Now I'm going to look it up.
I don't.
Because it's been so long.
I think we've gotten quite
5 seasons
on Amazon.
Not too bad. 5. Yeah.
There was 5 seasons.
Yeah. And then the last.
We've got lucky on Amazon recently. I don't know if
22 episodes. So
I don't know if you've watched it, but a show based on campaign. Roll the Legend, and I don't know if you've watched that yet.
Oh,
that is
the Vox Machina.
That is amazing. Yeah.
I love this since episode 1. I just saw a guy on Twitter and he was like, I didn't really like episode 1, so I just kept watching, and I was like, did you not like watch the show at all, like the seasons or anything, or like read? I have both graphic novels, which I thought were terrific. I thought the best thing so far was the show. I'm actually re-listening to season 1 of the campaign, so I'm almost done with season 1 of the campaign on Spotify. But yeah, I'm loving it. I'm like I think I'm like almost done.
I'm waiting for him to do campaign 2. Like campaign 2 was my favorite Critical Role campaign.
Yeah.
That was so good.
Yeah. And that's really where I think it picks up stride. Yeah.
Although I'm really enjoying Grog in the animated series.
Oh yeah.
Like, because you always imagine you know what Grog looks like. You've seen you see pictures when they're doing it, but then just to see Grog running around being Grog.
Yeah.
It just gives me a happy feeling. like I love Grog.
Yeah, and I really thought that Ashley got out more with Pike too. Like I felt like because Pike left for a while and then came back. I thought that like she's been crushing it personally. She's been one of my favorite characters in anything for a while. And it's because of the show. Because before
they did her dirty in Marvel. Ashley Johnson should have had more.
No, I totally agree.
Queen Ashley deserved more.
Yeah. No, she's awesome. I'm just I'm so happy that for her personally that she got her own little. I don't want to spoil it for anybody. She's got her own little spotlight now, versus being an add-on, I guess I should say. I know obviously she comes back later and stuff and does other things, but I just like that part with that, with Pike, is I just like that they featured her a lot more and gave her a much better storyline this time. So I felt like
we
they
get to
finally have done her
see
justice.
what happens while she's not with the group.
Exactly. And I'm like,
I think
just like before it got glossed over. So
I'm hoping that it's opening the door for more content to be made from tabletop gaming.
it would be
I
nice.
think this is the right time to bring out stories based on tabletop gaming, because I think people are more open to it now than they've ever been. And Vox
it's
Machina
number one
is
show
going to be a
on
really big
Amazon
reason
Prime.
for that.
Yeah, it's number one show on
it's
Amazon
amazing.
Prime. Yeah. And
it deserves it.
No, I totally agree. I just thought that Masters of the Universe, the Revelations, that and they just put out season 2. That was absolutely terrific. Like, it made me want to go back and finish season 1 of that. So I did, and now season 2 started. And I like that type. The art's very similar, and they're very similar in terms of developing story and the runtime. So I'm really hoping that we get more of those. And I'm about to go back to Castlevania season 2 as well. But yeah, I've been really enjoying it. It's kind of awesome. So
no, they're so good. They really sort of appeal to the kid in me that used to watch Saturday morning cartoons.
Yes, I think that's exactly what it is.
They're designed for our age group.
Yep.
Because we're the ones who sort of watch those cartoons with cereal in the morning.
Yeah.
And now I'm watching them with a cocktail on a Friday night.
No, it's it's funny that you say that.
But it works.
It's just funny because you just blew my mind on that. Yeah, because the art is very similar to. And that's like Masters of the Universe 2 or Revelations. It's the art's all, even Castlevania is very similar to that era. Wow. Yeah. I didn't realize that.
It's designed to appeal to us, to our age group.
Yeah. That's awesome. I had a couple kids ask me, and I'm like, I don't know if we should talk about this in school, but I was like, yeah, I love that show. I was like, you're not gonna see me showing it to you on a Friday fun day, but yeah, I was like, I'm gonna definitely be watching it after I go home. And I got to school the other day, and this kid's like, yeah, did you get caught up? I was like, no. I was like, I fell asleep after working all day, and I didn't go home until about midnight from announcing a basketball game. But I was like, I'll be caught up before we get back to school, because now we're on break. But yeah, I was surprised at how many of the younger kids are like, oh yeah, then I've been listening to Spotify and Campaign 1, and I'm like, that's really cool. Like, I just think those are the kind of things cool. I just think a lot of people, whether you like it or don't like it, I just think you need to be like, oh, it's good for the community, and I think that we need more of that. I think there's too much. Like, I just want to bring up Amazon Prime for a minute with Lord of the Rings, right? I exited this group the other day because they were like, oh, there's this black elf, and I'm like, seriously, and they're like, oh, Tolkien only said this, and I'm like, no, he didn't. And I'm like, what are you talking about? This guy actually, I just saw a lot of gatekeeping, I guess I should say, or threshold guardians. That's my book, and I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, this is 2022, and I was like, no offense to Tolkien fans out there, but that time period, I think that you get away with a lot because of the time period. And
absolutely.
Look at women
Tolkien
too,
was a product. Tolkien was a product of the time that he lived in. And I don't think that he could fairly conceive of different races other than, because you've got elves and you've got dwarves and humans, but even to him, I think that may be his way of combining races and getting races to work together. We don't have races like that in our world. You know what I mean? We have people from different countries and of different colors. And I think that Tolkien was ahead of his time in that he was using elves and dwarves and humans as his own metaphor for race wars.
No, totally.
And so
totally
for people to not want to have a person of color involved because that's not what elves are supposed to look like, I think is ridiculous. Because that takes away from what Tolkien's original sort of
it's the whole idea
process was.
It's a concept.
My interpretation of it. I don't know Tolkien. I don't know what he was thinking, but you know what I mean?
But like in the books, so like everybody comes to work together, and it's like, and the other thing is too, is like another guy said the same thing as me and you, and he was like, well, if you actually look at the descriptions, he's like, he said a few of these people were like this, but I just said to the guys that too, I said, so we're not, I'm like, I really like the female characters they brought out for the movies. I said, but even the movies from a cultural perspective now, it's like the movies were whitewashed. Like I love the movies, but I just think you have to admit it now that they were whitewashed for Hollywood at that time. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it, saying that, and people
that's what Hollywood did at that time. And
that's what Hollywood did. Yeah. And you look at Gods of Egypt too, which could have been an amazing movie. And you have all these guys running around, these white guys, and everybody else is, the women are people of color, but then these guys are white. And I'm like, really sorry, what's his name? I'm totally gonna blank on the guy from 300, but I was just like, yeah, this was a weird movie, and then later on I was like, this could have been so good, but it was weird. But yeah, I just think it's weird that people now, like, we're past that point, and it's like, this guy literally told me, like, oh, like, that's destroying his world building. I'm like, no, it's not. I'm like, did you see the trailer? I'm like, the guy looked awesome. He like took the bow and he even shot it the right way. And I was just like, oh man.
I think my problem with the trailer, I think that there's less character detail in the way that they look. So armor is not as detailed. Like, you see the elf in his armor, and it could just be human armor. Like, it doesn't have the flair that the elven armor had. And it's those little details for me that kind of make me go, oh, is it going to be as good? Because I love Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah.
I do. The detail that Peter Jackson put into every part of that was incredible. The reason why I didn't really like The Hobbit, because it didn't have the same level of care.
Well, they CGI
and I worried that. Yeah, I worry that Ring of Power is not going to have that level of care, so that it's not going to have that feeling, that same feeling of immersion that comes with Lord of the Rings. And that's what I worried about.
Well, like, how many, you got to think of even like how many blacksmiths they hired for that show, you know what I mean? Like, for all three, it's like, I had saw it, at some point, like, how many blacksmiths, how many fletchings that they did for the arrows, like, all sorts of stuff. I mean, just the time, the time and care that they spent for it, I think is just, like, you could tell, like, it was a baby, and I just think that it's interesting moving forward that people don't take that type of time and care on their own projects. And I totally agree. And I think that's the problem, is like, Wheel of Time too, for me, I was like, okay, well, it wasn't necessarily that they changed certain things for the script, it was things like that where I was like, like a couple of the, I don't want to say characters, but a couple of things they did, I was like, oh, like, you really didn't understand that character to anybody in the communities. Like, I think everybody could agree on certain things, and there were just a couple people when they got to the final place. I'm not gonna spoil for anybody, but I was just like, those people were totally different, like, completely. Like, you had and it's almost like they were wearing
you lose
different
something,
clothes.
don't you?
And I was just like, all right, like, and I could understand both sides of the argument. I kind of went in with an open mind, because I'm like, I don't think anything's going to be as good as the books. And very, very few pieces of media add to it. I think Lord of the Rings is one of the few exceptions with the original trilogy. I thought it was really fun and that they added cool things, but I don't think you get there very often. But
I think The Stand by Stephen King is one for me, where the miniseries that they did in the 90s, amazing. The book, amazing. Those I have some of the graphic novels somewhere.
Oh, that's
it's such a rich and amazing thing. And when they did the new series of it, everyone was nervous for me to watch it, because I do get quite emotional with these things. And some of the half is called Ken, and he's going, are you sure you can? Are we definitely doing this? And I'm like, yeah, put it on. We're gonna watch it. And I think at the end of every episode, I was filled with anger. I think there was one episode where, I don't know if you remember in the miniseries, but they had the town meeting, and they all stood up and they all sang the American national anthem. And as a British person, I probably shouldn't know the American national anthem, but I watched that movie so many times as a kid that it is now in my brain. And it was one of the most important scenes for me, because it was a scene of people coming together and becoming a community for the first time. And then I think it happened at the beginning of one of these episodes in this new series, and it cut out some of the best bits, and there was no wholesome feeling to it. We got halfway through the first 10 minutes and I'm in tears, and Ken's paused it and is like, are you okay? I'm like, no, I'm just so angry. But because I'm a sucker for punishment, I had to watch the whole thing, because you can't have an opinion on it without watching the whole thing. So I watched it all. I did not like it. I didn't approve. It does not get my seal of approval. Don't watch it if you haven't already.
I think with you brought up a really good point too. I think, sorry guys, we're on social media right now. It's fine. I think you brought up a really good point though, that like, the older one is really good, and now the newer one, I tried getting through the first episode. I really couldn't. I was just like, this isn't the same thing. And I do think that it's an interesting concept though, that I probably should watch the whole thing, because it's better to tell why I did or didn't like something, especially from a writer standpoint. But do it, internet, don't do it. Can you hear me now?
For
Oh, it we almost got it.
Such little, yeah, no, I can hear you.
Oh, there we go.
And they would take elements of this story. They took things that shouldn't have been changed, and then they changed them. And in doing so, characters lost important parts of their story and important parts of their identity. And I think for me, that was one of the worst parts. They butchered the relationship between Tom Cullen and Nick Andros. To me, that was the most beautiful thing in the original series. And I cried my eyes out every time them two were on screen together in the original because it was so moving and it was so perfect. You know, you had the guy who couldn't read or write, and then the guy who couldn't speak or hear, and how they built this amazing friendship. And you look, they butchered that. They absolutely decimated it in this new one. And so by the time, spoiler alert, Nick Andros sort of picks the bucket, and you're supposed to be sad because you know that he was Tom Cullen's best friend, and now he's never going to see him again. And it doesn't even mean anything in this new one because they don't really show that much of a friendship. And I thought, you had like, what, 10 hours? The original was 6 hours and they got this in. You've had like 10 hours to put this in. And you focused on the wrong places. They focused on the wrong characters. It was a shambles. And I get really passionate about The Stand.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was just talking
because it's one of those stories I read as a kid.
Yeah. Well, you want them to.
But, they just.
It's like my friend said there. What do you say? It's like you want someone to, like The Hobbit for me. I'm like, okay, it was definitely still my favorite novel of all time, up to this date, and I'm just like, it was life changing for me. And it's like one of those things where it's like, they just didn't take the time and care, in my opinion, with it. Like you said, like if they had taken the time and care like they did with the Lord of the Rings trilogy, it would have been absolutely amazing. And even if it was 3 movies, like I didn't care about that. It's just, although I did really like the part at the end, I did think the one thing I love about it that I was surprised was that, when like Bilbo gets back home and then they want to see his contract to prove it, he's him. And that part always gets me. Like, my wife's always like, "You're such a baby." Like, where they're like, "Who's this Thor Oakenshield?" And then he turns, he's like, "He was my friend." And like, it's not a very, whatever line. It's not very flashy, but it was just so plain and true. And I felt like that was one of the good things that they captured about the book. Was one of my only favorite things that they captured about the book in all 3 movies. But besides Gandalf and Bilbo, I thought they did a good job with them. Like their relationship. But I do think that you make a good point that as a writer you can take those things even that you don't like, right? I personally, again, like Angel, I didn't like the ending, so to this day I'm like, I don't like, trying to figure out a way to say this without giving things away. I write my books and stories a certain way because of how I felt at the end of that. And life is not always perfect, but I'm not saying that every ending has to be happy, but I want readers and myself to feel satisfied with the ending. And I think too with the story and the relationships in particular, like you said, like relationships for me have to be satisfying. I read this whole trilogy with these amazing relationships, get all the way to the end, and then this won't spoil anything, so I won't say what the trilogy was, but like it was this one fantasy series, and I'm like, it was so good, and the characters go all the way then to the end, and then it's like this one character gets like mind controlled, and then there's no books after that by this sword, and I'm like you could have just ended it.
But what happens next?
And then you could have just done that in the next book. I'm like, this would have made it, because then you probably would have gotten another book, and I'm like. And it was from I'm not going to mention names, but it's from a bigger named company back, in the 90s, early 2000s. And I'm like, what are you doing? So I think that Angel, are 2 of the reasons that I write the endings that I write and the way that I write. So I do think you make a really good point that if you don't like the relationships that they did in The Second Stand, like I think it's a really good way, right, for you to, as an author, internalize that and say, I'm going to do that differently. And I do think that it's, like if you don't like the way that they did
to focus on things.
Exactly.
If you know that one of your characters is going to have to meet a grisly end, you're going to want to make it really hurt for all the rest of your characters and the reader. It sounds awful to say it, but I want it to hurt if someone's going to die. And so otherwise, I want them to have a good relationship. I want to explore the relationship between characters so that when they are taken away, because we lost people when we played our campaign, and you've got this character that you've played with for so long, and then suddenly they get taken away. And it doesn't matter if you're halfway through like an overarching story that they're right in the middle of, and then the most important thing, and then they just get taken and they're gone, and you have to rebuild like through grief. And that is a really important thing in books. And I think if you don't have those relationships down pat, then it's not going to come across that way. You're not going to have the impact that you want.
I have such a good example of that. Like, we were playing a game and we just started playing Pathfinder, and we just started the campaign, and one of my friend's characters, which we didn't know at the time, was an undead. And he always wanted these quirky characters. Well, I was a paladin. So I went to heal him, and when he was unconscious, and then he woke up, and because I healed him, it killed him. Well, we were just like shocked because it was right at the beginning of the campaign. And we were just like, what just happened? He goes, we just killed my character. And I'm like, what do you mean you just killed your character? We had no idea. So then the DM like tells us like, oh, he was an undead. Well, we were like, we just found it silly because, you know, like I said, well, I wish that you had done something so that that didn't happen. He's like, well, what would you want me to do? I go, I don't know. You're the storyteller. Like, do something so that, you know, I feel a sense of presence or something. Because it's the same thing though, right? It's like, it happened so early that it didn't affect us. You know, it was like, I felt like it was a wasted moment personally. So I just felt like if it had happened later on, you know, like when we had banded together or whatever, like it would have like it's kind of a funny thing that happened to our group, but I think it would have crushed us. And I think it really would have been a bonding moment once he came up with his secondary character. But yeah, I totally feel that. That's how I feel. I'm like, oh, that was like a wasted opportunity. Because I'm like, he just died for no reason. And then like it was, we were all just looking at each other like, what just happened? And then we're like, okay, fine, whatever. So I got a second character right here. We're like, and we moved on. And I was like, I think back to it now and I'm like, that was such a wasted moment. So
that could have been something.
Right. Yeah. And I just think like that could have been a defining, you know, game memory for all time. And now it's just like a funny meme or blurb that we have. But yeah, I think it's a good point. You know, if you're gonna, whatever you're gonna do, something drastic like that, make sure you're defining the moment. I think is a good way to put it. That's how my friend always puts it, define the moment. But yeah, that's a great point. But isn't it horrible when they do that to a character you love? You're just like, just a wasted moment like that. You're just like, okay, you just did that for no reason. Like, that really drives me insane. All right, well, sorry guys, we got on a tangent there, but I got a lot out of it, so I hope you did. It's a lot of writing stuff crammed in there. Social media, I just include like, you know, movies and stuff in the social media, but I do feel like social media has just been like on my mind lately. Like there's just, like you said, there's just so many like Vox Machina. I'm just like, it amazes me, but at the same time, it's like you have these people that love this thing that they do clearly and create a whole community of people about, you know, around it. And it's like, I just think it goes to show you that if you have the right people doing it who care about something, you know, like I was talking to somebody recently and they're like, oh, are you gonna get this new job? And I said, well, I really hope so. I said, because you know, at school, I'm like, I really care about the kids. I said, I hope so. I'm like, I feel like I'll be the better person that does it because somebody else comes outside of the school, doesn't know them, you know, or whatever. I'm like, I'll fight tooth or nail for them. I'm like, I just think it's the same thing as that, you know, they were like, oh no, we want it to be this way. Like the art has to be this way.
Yeah.
You know, these characters have to be this way. And I just think it really goes to show you that it can be done right. You know, like all these excuses that people give, it's like, that's just what they are, as excuses. So, I mean, Angel didn't really have that big of a budget as far as I knew, you know, for the WB compared to Smallville. Like Smallville had something crazy, like, you know, with all those special effects. It's like, it was simple, you know, like, I'm totally blanking on the character, but he comes up later, the like demon who's green skinned. Like I just loved him. And, you know, he's a very low budget character, but he's somebody for me that I'm always like, for secondary characters at least, like thinking like, oh, I remember him, like he was really cool. But I think like Charmed too, you know, is another one where it's like, it wasn't super big budget, but
Charmed was amazing.
Yeah,
because it's the story, because you really, really fall in love with these people and you care about what happens to them.
Yeah.
And you can have a really low budget as long as you've got characters that people care about.
Yeah. I think it's a really important writing lesson for people to learn. But so speaking of writing advice, so what is one piece of writing advice that you would give your younger self?
Don't stop doing it when you get bored.
That is such great advice.
When it starts to feel difficult, You have to just keep doing it. Because this is the thing, it took me, a full year to write my first draft. And then it took me another year to edit that first draft, because I would write on my lunches at work. And then I'd reach a point where I was like, I could probably just stop for a day. And then it'd take me like 3 months to start doing it again.
Yep.
And so my advice would be, just write every single day. Even if you just write trash, just write something. Stay in the habit. Don't stop when you're bored of typing. It's still a habit that I do now. I still do it now. I did it yesterday. I was writing. I reached a point where I was like, that's a good stopping point. And I think I'd done maybe like 1,500 words, and I was like, yeah, good stopping point. Go and reward yourself with a bit of television. No, do another 1,500. It'll took you an hour.
That's like the other day. Like,
I'm terrible for it.
Well, like we've been on vacation. I'm like, like the other day, I wrote down like 60 words, and I was like, then I fell asleep after all of our stuff, and I was like, you know what? That's totally fine. I'm like, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, you did something. That's all that matters. You did something.
Well, then it's funny because then yesterday I did more, and then today I'm like really ready to go because I had this newer idea, and I'm like, well, if I hadn't written 2 days ago, like there wouldn't be anything to do today, or not as much. But yeah, it's totally true. I think that's great advice. I wish I had a time machine.
I just want someone just to stand over me and yell at me. It's one of the reasons why I've been sending it to my friends, and I'm sending it literally as I write it. So I'll sit down, I'll do it for an hour, and they're all getting my first draft, spelling mistakes and all. And so I'll write it for about an hour, and then I'll send it to them all in an email. And so that the next day I get emails off and going, we need more. Can you write us some more? Can you just put some more? It's in your brain. You have to do this.
Stop sleeping.
And well, I went around to my friend's house, and she's like, "We bring your laptop?" And I said, "Yeah, of course I will." And I took my laptop over to her house, and we were talking about the book, and she'd read the updated parts, and she went, "So if you got your laptop, you could write some now and then send it me." I'm going, "Yeah, all right. Give me a minute."
Yeah, that's awesome.
Need some more, a couple more chapters, honestly. But it does help having people that are going, we want to read it, we want to see it. So it encourages you to keep going. And it's the reason why my TikTok did as well as it did for so long, because I had like maybe 300 or 400 people per part that would comment on it going, remind me for the next bit, I want to see the next bit, what happens next, oh my god, what's going on. And it just encourages you to give back to that. It's like instant gratification for me, because I live off praise. And I like people to tell me that they like the things that I do.
Who doesn't? Yeah.
So, and I've got all these people saying it's really wonderful, how great it is, and how amazing it is. And I'm like, if I do another one today, then they'll say all those nice things again.
It's like a marathon where you have everybody on the side. Everybody's like cheering you on. Like,
that's what I need to keep writing. I literally need people to be like, that was amazing, do more. And I'm like, okay.
Well, I did talk to somebody about this like last year, where they were like they were heading somebody's like Facebook group or something, like page or whatever, and that's what they would do. Like they would literally like basically collect everybody like at the end, I think it was like every 2 weeks, end of every 2 weeks, and they would literally just like send messages or whatever, or memes to the author to keep going, because they were like trying to be encouraging, because they had that type of idea, and he got on and he's like, this was really helpful. He was like, and he's like, I really want a group to, so I do think it is helpful. I think me right now, it's like I'm on a lonely island by myself, and nobody really cares except for my best friend. So it's like he'll ask me all the time, but I got students in school that ask me, but it's totally different than people constantly be like, hey, this is great, like we want the next piece. So I think that's a great
that's how I felt writing my first trilogy, because nobody wanted to read it until it was finished. So they'd read they'd only read the first book when it was ready. They'd only read the second book when it was ready. So I'd get like halfway through writing a book, and I'm going, I don't know if I'm even taking this in the right direction. I don't know if people are going to agree with this. I don't know if this is going to be really badly received. And I need to ask someone. But then I'll turn on to my other half. Even you won't read it. I'll turn on to my other half, and I'm like, will you read what I've got so far and tell me if it's like going in the right way? And he's like, no, I want to read it when it's done. I'm like, damn it. He's like, nobody would read it. Which is why I think this is going better, because I've got the constant information feedback going on. So I mean, it's their characters, so they're the ones that know best, and they'll be like, oh, I don't think I would say it quite like that. And I'm like, well, how would you say it? You made the character, like what would you say? this is the
you and my-
situation. Like, how are you reacting to this?
Yeah.
Yeah, to be fair, it's going quite well. I don't get a lot of feedback in terms of I wouldn't do that. They're just like, no, yeah, I would definitely have done that.
Yeah.
Like, this person punches this guy. Yeah, that sounds like me.
I definitely think you make a really good point, though, that could be a really good use of a TikTok community, you know, is like getting that type of instant feedback. Because I was just listening to like Michael R. Fletcher was talking again a couple of their episodes ago on Wizards, Words, and Words, and he was saying that, you know, like it would be, he said the same thing you did. Like, he goes like, I'll get done with the whole book. He goes, then the beta readers, really, most of them want the whole book. He's like, I want to know before I make those mistakes. So I do think that could be a good one to do. So
yeah, I killed someone in one of my books, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I should have done that. Whoopsie. And that I did send to my friend. My friend did read that, and she's like, no, I don't like it, but it's fine.
Yeah.
It was the right thing. Still don't like it.
Yeah. No, that's fair. That is fair. Oh, that's great advice. I'm gonna have to think about that one a little bit more myself. Kind of want to skip to the social media, really. Well, what about this one, number 4? So what is your process of editing between drafts? So you talked a little bit about, you know, like, so let's put it into TikTok. Like, how often, so you're sending a new chapter every day then, or a new point of view every day?
To
like,
my
how
friends.
are you doing that?
Well, it's kind of going 1,500 words at a time.
Oh, okay.
I was thinking about doing it on Wattpad. But again, I have two of different, because I have to keep things separate in my mind, because I have a Wattpad that I use a lot for the Marvel stuff that I do, which is slightly more, I guess, adult than what I would normally write. And I'm disinclined to add this to Wattpad, to the same Wattpad, because as soon as I share the link, it's going to link everyone back to that other stuff that I wrote that I don't want people to read if they know me. So I've had to start a new Wattpad, and I'm tempted to put it up chapter by chapter on there. But at the moment, I just sort of, I sit down, I write about 1,500 to 2,000 words in a session. And then I literally just go, save, email, send. The first draft is riddled with spelling mistakes and grammar mistakes, and it's absolute trash. But I want them to get the gist of the story. That's sort of what they're doing at the minute, is just sort of checking the story. I never edit as I'm writing the first draft. Like, I just leave it, no matter how bad it is. I did it actually. I tell a lie, because I did a little bit today before we came on here, because I was having a look at it, and I thought I'll just read through the last sort of bit to remind me where I was up to.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, nah, spelling mistake. Oh, that's the wrong word. Oh, that I shouldn't say that. Oh, maybe I should put that like this though. And that's why I don't edit, because I'll never get anything done if I do.
Oh, yeah.
So I write the whole thing. Once the entire book's complete, I literally just go back to chapter 1, and I just sit and I read it out loud like an idiot to myself, because I catch mistakes better when I'm reading them out loud. If I read it in my brain just skips over those bad words. And then it's the first draft is going through and fixing all my grammar and spelling mistakes, of which there are many. Excuse me. And then the second work through is checking sentence structure, and repetitive words, and just that sort of malarkey where you write the word path 8 times in one sentence and you go, that's not right. So yeah, it's going through
like
and
a
just
person.
sort of, yeah, that's not how people talk. So just like really sort of tightening everything up, and trying to get it to a point where I can read it and it sounds good. I use the because I use Microsoft Word for writing. I tried Dabble for like a day. It is the best. It's just, it literally is. And now they've got the text to audio thing on there, so it sounds so robotic. But I sit in this little chair here, and I hit play, and I just sit and I just listen to it, and I just sort of go, if I forget that I'm listening to a robot voice reading out very monotonously what I've written, and I start getting into the story, that's when I know it sounds good. And then every now and again, they'll say something and it'll just sound weird. So then I have to pause it and then go back in. Actually, that needs to sound like that. And then do it again. And once we get to the end of that, That's my 3 edits, and then I send it to an actual editor to just change everything that I've done.
Yeah.
But I have an editor that I worked with for my first 2 books. I worked with someone different for my third, but I'm going to go back to my first editor, I think, because he's just incredible at what he does. And so once I finish with this one, he'll get it, he'll do what he needs to do with it, and then I just have to format it. And that's really the whole process. It's just many read-throughs until you get bored of your own story and never want to see it again.
It's funny how everybody says that. Like, once you get so sick of it, like Rob J. Hayes was like, "Yep, I'm really tired of this, so it probably means it's done." I was like,
yeah, okay. I can't face listening to it or reading it again, so I'm done.
That's awesome. It's funny because you said that, because I just know so many people that say that. I'm like that just has to be the thing, I guess, lately. Like,
it is, like, it's crazy. I can't read my first book. Like, I love it, but I can't read it because it's horrendous. Like, although the worst part is, every now and again I do have a little look at it. Like, if I'm at my friend's house and they'll get it out and I'll be like having a little look, and I'll like read them a couple of paragraphs in a funny voice. As I'm reading it, the thought that comes into my brain is like, did I write this? This is actually pretty good. Did I do this? I don't remember writing this. Maybe my editor did it. So I just put it down to him. I'm like, it must have been my editor that changed that. Things I don't even know these words. I've never I don't know what that word means. That wasn't me.
That's awesome.
Like,
it probably does feel
I don't
that
know
way,
if anybody
though.
else does it.
But
yeah, just if I read back the things that I've done and I read them go like with fresh eyes, and I'm like, I don't remember being that capable a writer. Like, I'm not sure I did that. But then it turns out I did, and I'm always quite impressed with past me. And then I sit writing and I'm like, no, maybe I'm not that good. I'm writing it again now and it doesn't look great.
Well, speaking of Stephen King, I listened to a podcast where somebody was saw like him on Twitter or something, and he was like talking about whatever his newest book was that he wrote recently, and he was like, "Yep, felt like day one all over again." And I was like, "Well, if Stephen King can feel like day one after however many he's written, I was like, I guess it's okay for everybody else to feel the same way." And make the same mistakes over
sitting with imposter syndrome every time I write.
And that's what he said. He's like, "Oh, I just feel like I have imposter syndrome." And she was like, "Wait a minute." Like, so I was like, I was glad that she shared the anecdote, because I was like, oh, that actually made me feel a whole lot better. Like, different than
it does, doesn't it?
Like, there's misery's in great company, I guess you could say. All right, well, we got time for one more. So I'm really just anxious to hear, just really in terms of like, we talked a little bit before we started, just in terms of like your TikTok and like how you've grown your following there. And if you don't mind sharing with, the audience, what you've been doing for the POV, that just sounds really, really cool. So
the POV community, it's a massive thing on TikTok, because book talk doesn't work for me, because there's only so many times I can sort of flick through the pages of my 3 solitary little books. And I don't have a really good head for marketing or advertising or anything like that. So I thought, I'm aware that this world exists, and I'm aware that you can build a following very fast if you're good at it. So I delved into the world of Marvel POVs, which grew my follower count sort of exponentially. I think I started it January 21, and here we are a year later and 50,000 followers later. I think I have like 8 stories on there, and all you do is you edit together clips of the Marvel characters having conversations with the main character, which is it's always put as YN, so it means your name. So as you're watching this, I mean, it's definitely a thing for people who are sort of attracted to the Marvel men, because the whole premise of these stories is it's a romance between you, the reader, and the Marvel guys. And I think it's a premise that's been going on for many, many years on things like Wattpad and the other sort of fan fiction sites. But it's made its way into TikTok, and it's such an incredible thing. You get the joy of music choices. So you're creating a whole story, and you're showing people that you can write a whole new narrative. You can invent whole new storylines for these Marvel characters. They're doing things that never happened in the movies. It's this whole new world that you're building for people to enjoy. And when they get to the end of a story and they're satisfied with how it's come together and how it's ended, you can sort of say to them, look, I can write. I know you don't know who I am, but you've just really enjoyed something that I've written. So here's my book. Like, go and get that. And it's just a very, very different way to build a following and to sort of show people what you're capable of, because as an unknown writer, it's very difficult to get people to part with their money when you've written something, because they don't know if it's going to be any good. They don't know if you write the way that they like, or if your imagination runs in line with theirs. I think finding favorite authors is very difficult, because you don't know if you're going to enjoy something until it's too late and you've bought it. I think by showing people what you're capable of and how you can craft a world and a story, you basically advertising for free, but you're also, they're not watching an advert. You're not sort of going, buy my book, it's amazing, I promise. You've given them something. You've sort of gone, here's a lot of my time. I think, like I said, they're about a minute long. My first story was 108 parts. It's almost the length of a film that I've slowly edited and built together. And I think there's like 8 stories on there now. So if people come onto my account, they'll spend about 7 hours on there going through all of my content.
Oh, that's cool.
And at that point, they're the people that are going to say, yes, I want to buy your book because I trust you. And it's building a relationship with a fan base, I think. Having said that, anytime I make a video with my face in it, they're always like, who's she? She's not from Marvel. I decided to try this amazing new tactic of editing myself into Marvel movies, like just blue screening myself.
That's a cool idea.
I was bored. I think there's a scene in I'm going to say Endgame. It's in Infinity War, sorry, at the beginning, where Tony Stark and Doctor Strange are kind of meeting for the first time. And Doctor Strange is like, I'm protecting your reality, douchebag. And then it just cuts to me like between them going, oh, drama.
That's awesome.
I love stuff like that. I'm such a sucker for it. I think there was the one where Loki calls someone a mewling quim. And I'm like, did you just call me a whiny vagina? People don't enjoy those as much as the stories, but I enjoy them. They're ridiculous. I have a very chaotic brain, and sometimes I just need to get things out of them. But the Marvel TikTok world, if the POV community exists for anything that you can think of. So there's supernatural POVs, there's Witcher POVs, there's a lot of Vampire Diaries POVs. So any sort of fandom that you're a part of, there's a world that you can enter, and you can show people what you can do. You can showcase your talent in quite a unique way, I think. Whilst I'll never make it onto Book Talk doing it, I feel like I enjoy the little community that I've built. There's no negativity in there. Everyone's just super nice to everyone else. The comment section on my videos is a really lovely place to be on the internet, because it's just full of support and kindness, which is kind of all I want in my life. It's like, I don't want any drama. Just bring the happiness. Tell me I'm wonderful, and that's all I need. But no, TikTok has taken over my life a little bit.
Well, I think it's great because everybody, this is like a final thing here. Like, I just think it's funny because I was listening to so many people the last couple of weeks on their podcasts, and people think, oh, like, there's nothing creative that I can do. Everybody's already done everything. So I just think that, you have now presented something that people could do. And I think it'd be really fun. Like I think I'm going to try and do some Star Wars ones, or Lord of the Rings ones, because that's what I like. And, I'm definitely going to check out yours.
Oh, the Lord of the Rings one's a big one.
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings POVs are vastly popular. But you do usually end up having to fall in love with Thranduil, which I don't mind. But they are the fan base is primarily sort of young females between the ages of like 15 and 18, with the occasional middle-aged woman like me who just like enjoys them. But they're a fun new way to show people what you can do. And it works for me a little bit. It's not phenomenal. I've got way more followers than I have viewers, but the problem we've got right now is with the change in sort of TikTok's algorithms. One of the things that they've basically said is that if you are using recognizable footage from something else, that's not going to get pushed onto the For You page. Which means that the only people that will see my POVs now are the people that already follow me. And that's kind of, it's disappointing that it's gone that way, because the For You page is where I primarily get all my views. And what TikTok's basically doing is killing the POV community a little bit. We haven't found anywhere else to go yet. So
well, I think that's true with book talk too.
Once the next platform comes up, we'll join that. But I don't know if the POV community is the best world to get into at the minute, just because of what they're doing. I'd like to think it's
But I just think it's fun. It's interesting though to see that you found something creative and fun to do to grow an audience on a platform. And I just think it's a great example that goes to show people like there are fun and creative things you can do. And it's like, I just think that you need to think like what you were saying, like what your interests are, and what you use, something that you were interested in and something that you had skills in, to also showcase your skills. So I think that that's like super, super important to do. And and I mean, some of us do podcasts and some of us do POVs, and it's like it's just it's interesting to see what different people can do, and to grow their platform. And again, I think it's like we talked beforehand, I just think it's important for indie authors in particular to learn how to grow their platform and really go with what you're good at and what you're interested in. And that's what you do when you're writing books, so why wouldn't you do it for advertising? And it doesn't always have to be something super, super crazy, like you're just doing it on TikTok, a free app, so
it's all I know how to do. I don't know how to advertise, but I know how to write. So I'll write stories on TikTok.
That's fair.
It's fortunate I have an encyclopedic knowledge of Marvel.
There you go.
Because that's the thing, you sit there and you're like, I need a clip of Steve Rogers looking sad. Oh, I know, Captain America Civil War.
Yep.
When he finds out
most
about
of the movie,
Peggy and he gets a text message. Encyclopedic knowledge.
That's really funny. All right, well, I want to thank you for coming on again, Jen. It's always awesome to talk to you. I feel like I'm gonna have to go back, and every time I've been editing now with people, I've been taking notes myself. So I'm definitely, especially when we were talking about social media, I have to go back over it because you had me thinking about quite a few things now that I was not thinking about before. And TikTok too. I'm going to be playing.
I'll send you the link to my.
That would be terrific, actually.
I'll send you the link to my Loki lovers. It's my TikTok account. You can check it out.
That'd be awesome. Remind me too. We'll put those in for the description too. That way people could go and check out your POVs and stuff like that. And kind of see what's going on.
Everyone's welcome in my little POV community.
That's awesome. Well, thank you again for coming on, for your second time for February Shiro. I'm really excited to get all 3 books now in paperback. I've been waiting for book 3 to come out. So them? So if you're on YouTube, Jen's showing her books now. If you are on Spotify or rssfeed.com, click in the description to find Jen's books. Okay, I'm looking at them right now. That first one in particular is one of my favorite covers of all time. Definitely top 5. So you guys are gonna have to go and check them out and make sure you buy them today. I actually am going on Monday after work to our indie bookstore. I love going to the indie bookstore and buying indie published books. It's just a nice little twofer, to help everybody out. So it's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jen. I hope that we can have you on, maybe like later in the summer or something like that, or in the fall, and kind of do your maybe if we don't get anything before, then we can at least do your year anniversary on here episode. And I'm really excited to hear about your new series. So that's really exciting. So
I am going to send you what I've got so far.
Oh yeah, that'd be terrific
have to
too.
Ignore the spelling mistakes.
Oh, don't worry about it. Yeah, I love the in process stuff. Like it's really interesting to me. I'm not an editor, but I love seeing where people are and then reading later on the actual product and seeing where it gets to. It's kind of like seeing a like a behind the scenes kind of thing. But yeah, that'd be really cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jen. I hope you have a great evening, and I will talk to you later, my friend.
Thank you.
See you later.
All right. See you later. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime. Bye.